In a world overrun by neocon warmongers, and with the mass media in the pockets of the cabal elite, there remains one bastion of truth amidst the confusion. One beacon of light shining through the murky fog of spin and Islamophobic propaganda. That's right, it's the MP Radio Security Council. The final frontier in the fight for freedom and fairness. I give you the Security Council.
أبدا لن نحيد أبدا لن نحيد أبدا لن نحيد عن خطى الإيمان. دربنا درب قويم دربنا درب قويم بالهدى القرآني. أبدا لن نحيد أبدا لن نحيد أبدا لن نحيد عن خطى الإيمان. دربنا درب قويم دربنا درب قويم بالهدى القرآني. سائر في طريق الحق يا جند الله.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Welcome to Middle Path Radio, and you're listening to the Security Council with myself, Ahmed, and I'm joined tonight, with Brother Ubaid, Mr. Producer. Assalamu alaikum, Mr. Ubaid.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
How are you doing? You okay?
I've actually changed seats. I'm not behind the desk no more. I'm actually out. I'm out sitting on the
couch. That's right. You are now formally part of the Security Council. This is all part of our. It's all part of our revolution.
The Café Ikhwan.
That's right. This is the Café Ikhwan resistance, fighting strong and hard against the current occupation by the Security Council. And tonight we've made some gains, as we have a couple of empty seats tonight. Two members, permanent members, they like describe themselves, are absent today. Little do they know that we had some hit squads and assassination teams sent out for them to eliminate them in this process, really, for Café Ikhwan to return.
We had some of our elite workers called the Mashoud. Also known as Mossad.
So,
outdoing the job.
Exactly. I was going to say, this Security Council is made up of dictators and other criminal goons.
Elements.
So what we've done is we've paid off the usual suspects like the CIA and their other, what do they call them, mercenary, unrecognized, unregistered military outfits to do some of our dirty work, as the CIA are known for doing. We've paid them, of course, in the Israeli shekel, which is the currency that they accept these days. So that's the reason why we don't have two of our permanent members here today. Hopefully those ops were rather successful. So Café Ikhwan is close to coming back. Is almost here. So if by next week, there seems to be a setback, then we'll be definitely reporting. But comrade, we've made some progress. Now, coming back to some of our listeners who may have just joined to listen to the Security Council tonight, you may be wondering what on earth is going on. Well, obviously, just from the name of the program, you can probably make out that we have a kind of spoof, kind of comedic element to it. While we try to keep things humorous and light-hearted, informal at least, we'd like to describe it as, we do discuss some very serious issues on this program. And we've got a very busy lineup and schedule ahead of us tonight. We've got two very important guests joining us to discuss some of the very, trending issues, at least from the last week anyway. So, before we go ahead, I'd like to give out our hotline number for the studio. So do get in touch with us, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, whoever is listening from whatever part of the world that you may be tuning into Middle Path Radio from. So the number is 07477 080 248. That's 07477 080 248. And if you are, as we do know that we have a lot of listeners from outside of the UK, you just add +44 and then go straight to 7477 080 248. You drop the 0 on the beginning and add +44. So without further delay, who have we got in line today? Mr. Producer, would you like to just give our listeners a heads up? I understand you've got some important people lined up. Is it Brother Anas Tikriti that you've got ready for us tonight?
We have indeed. It's been long awaited, actually. I've been actually looking forward to having him on our show for a long time, actually.
That's right.
I think we actually planned him for our very first show as well, to get him on board.
It's true that we did want him to come speak on, but he was abroad, actually, for our first show. And it was during the time when their accounts were being closed. His personal accounts had already been shut down. This was at the same time or soon after Dr. Azam Tamimi's accounts were also shut down by their respective banks, with not much respect to their customers. So, yes, we're going to have Brother Anas Tikriti on the air tonight. We'll be taking his call soon after our first break of the show. Brother Anas Tikriti, for those of you who need an introduction for him, which there aren't many of you, I'm guessing, Brother Anas is the CEO and founder of the Cordoba Foundation. Okay, and we'll tell you a little bit more about the Cordoba. In fact, actually, we'll leave it for Brother Anas to explain to our listeners what the Cordoba Foundation is. I'm sure he will do that a lot more justice than I could in just a brief description that I can give. He's also a political analyst and a media commentator. He's been on many of the mainstream news and media channels, giving his assessment and analysis on different developing issues in and outside of the UK, namely in the MENA. I think that's, if I'm pronouncing it's an abbreviation, Middle Eastern and North African politics and other geopolitical issues over there. So we'll be having Brother Anas very soon. We've also got another guest lined up. It's Dr. Salman Al-Azami. I need to be able to distinguish between the two. I can get their names mixed up. Dr. Salman Al-Azami, he is a linguist expert. He's also a senior lecturer at Liverpool University. He also happens to be the son of the late Professor Ghulam Azam from Bangladesh, who is a member of a political party, his father, that is, member of the political party Jamati Islami in Bangladesh, and he has died in police custody only a few days ago, just last week, mid last week. So that's a very tragic story that we will be trying to carry and getting a little bit more insight from his younger son, who is himself politically aware, but not. He says, according to his profile, he's not politically active in any way. He's an academic by all extents of the word, and we'll be hearing from him. He's authored a couple of books. I understand he's going to publish another work this year, 2014. So I'm looking forward to hearing from him as to what exactly happened in Bangladesh, the general scenario, the political scenario, and the general climate in Bangladesh for political activity, and exactly what happened with the circumstances surrounding his father's death, that tragic story. So those will be our two guests today, some very important people. We hope you'll definitely enjoy hearing from them. And, some of these people have not yet spoken openly about some of these issues. Why are we talking to Brother Anas? I forgot to tell you. We're talking to him because there's been some recent scrutiny in the UK regarding the operations of the Muslim Brotherhood. That sounds very clandestine when I say operations. I mean, basically, what are the Muslim Brotherhood doing in the UK? There have been some very strong allegations that they're involved in terrorism, and they are, conducting a lot of their quote-unquote terrorist operations from the UK. I mean, it sounds absurd just describing it. Those of you who don't know, the Muslim Brotherhood is the political party, it's not the political, it's the name of the organization that then put forward a political party in Egypt called the Freedom and Justice Party, if I'm remembering correctly, in Egypt. It is the party that Dr. Mohammed Morsi, the former and ousted democratically elected leader, first ever Egyptian democratically elected leader, who's now been replaced by the military government and a military coup in Egypt. So that's we're going to be discussing just a wider issue there and how that similar censorship from Egypt, Muslim Brotherhood is actually facing something very similar in the UK. There's been a couple of stories in the Telegraph and a subsequent story in the BBC. I'm going to give you a quick roundup of the headlines before we go straight to the break and then have our guest on air. Is there anything you'd like to add, Mr. Producer? I mean, what do you think? I mean, what's exactly happening out there?
You know, the thing is, there's so much headlines and so much articles to get through. The 2-hour slot we have is just not enough.
It's not justice. I guess that's why they do daily news rounds and stuff like that. And you have Newsnight, and they easily digest and they just kind of break everything down. We can't afford to do that, I'm afraid. So we're going to have to try to squeeze in as much as we can in this 2-hour slot. Okay, so here are the headlines. This does not mean that we will be actually going through all of the articles. We'll probably just read the headlines and try to hand select maybe a handful at most of some of the most relevant ones that we think should be given a little bit more attention. So here goes. These are the headlines. So of course we're starting with the story in the Telegraph. Downing Street set to crack down on the Muslim Brotherhood. That's their headline for that story. An unpublished report commissioned by David Cameron into the Muslim Brotherhood will link it to up to 60 charities, groups, and even television channels operating in the UK. Well, I thought they were going to say, link it to ISIS or link it to Al Qaeda, but
this sounds a little bit more dangerous.
Yeah, that he's linked to charities and television channels. Okay, maybe there's something more criminalizing further down in the article. Anyway, we're reading the headlines, so we'll probably get the juicy parts when we get stuck in, especially when Brother Anas and them come on air. Muslim Brotherhood, this is in BBC. Muslim Brotherhood, cleared of UK terrorism link, quote unquote. Or in inverted commas. Muslim Brotherhood cleared of UK terrorism link. So there seems to be like a contradictory reporting going on here. Anyway, let's continue. Another very tragic event that happened that we are going to be, inshallah, touching on this program is in the Independent and also in the BBC. We have the woman from Iran, a Sunni woman who killed her alleged rapist, has been executed in Iran. And really, to be honest with you, if she was a Shia woman who killed her alleged rapist, it wouldn't really make a huge difference at all. So she's been herself the victim of an alleged rape, has been executed in Iran, hung in Iran, the ally of the Americans in their war against ISIS, who were doing what? Executing prisoners. Like who? Like this lady who killed her rapist. But anyway, that is not important, I'm sure. We'll gloss over those details. Next headline again, sorry, we already mentioned, this is the hanging of this lady. Her name is Rehania Jabbari. That's in the BBC. We have an excellent piece here in The Intercept. And we're going to have to read some of this. Again, see, I'm not sure how I'm going to get through all of this. But anyway, this is by Glenn Greenwald. It says, Canada, at war for 13 years, but shocked that a terrorist has attacked its soldiers. Glenn Greenwald kicked up a furore on Twitter when writing this piece, and it makes for excellent reading. Believe me, when we get stuck into that one, we're going to get our teeth deep into that one, inshallah, and really we want to take your views and your thoughts on that. Some interesting news here, again, in the BBC. We like to keep it within the well-known, recognized media channels, because unfortunately, if you do go to alternative sources and cite other references, our ordinary folk out there tend to think, that's just a conspiracy theory. Unless the BBC says so, it can't be true. So here you are, the BBC is saying very clearly, quoting rather, some of the military leaders of the UK, saying that the UK military made wrong calculations on Afghanistan. And this is on the back of the story only day before yesterday. I believe, if I'm exact with the date, the UK pulls out its last troops in its withdrawal from the war in Afghanistan, a 11-year-old war that they waged out there. It seems history has repeated itself. The empires are all going to the land, the graveyard of many other empires. The place where empires go to die, Afghanistan. Another article in the New York Times, it's just titled simply The Reign of Terror. And he puts the word terror in inverted commas by Thomas Capitan. This is, again, very similar to Glenn Greenwald's article, but it's really tackling with the issue of the definition of the word terror and how it's being used by politicians, governments, heads of state, and the effect it's having on policy, legislation, and just the public opinion in general. It's an excellent piece, again. I'll put it up there, definitely, with Glenn Greenwald's. He's probably not as well known as Glenn, of course, but we'll try and read some of that as well. Perhaps stories that we might not go into detail. They are the following in BBC again. A code of practice for religious schools have been shelved. This is the title. Again, you remember we've covered this story in the past, that the government and other departments, educational bodies in the UK, Ofsted and other investigative bodies, they had suggested that religious schools have to follow a particular code of practice because there seems to be a Trojan horse kind of, going on a rampage through these so-called, let's just say, Islamic schools. Religious schools ain't really exactly being fair because they're really only targeting Islamic schools. But they've decided to shelve that idea. It didn't work. And we'll go into why. There is a reason as to why. Next story, police raid unlicensed Islamic school in East London. This is in The Guardian. Again, I wanted you to think about that. Here we have police raiding, right, schools. We're not talking about drug dens. We're not talking about, arms depots, illegal arms depot. We're talking about primary school, premises, places where children go to learn. Oh, we'll just drop in the word unlicensed as well. That justifies it, I guess. Anyways, that's The Guardian on that. Again, The Guardian talks about the first US military death announced since the ISIS offensive started in Iraq. That's a little bit inaccurate. They should have said first US military death. Actually, it's probably the second US military death announced since the offensive started in Iraq and Syria against all Sunnis, basically, and the Syrian revolution and the Iraqi revolution there. But it's convenient to say against the offensive against ISIS. Let's carry on. Here we have The Independent, an article written by Alias Karmani. ISIS in the UK, quite a let's say evocative title here. ISIS in the UK, how the war on terror radicalized a generation. I'm not sure where the brother is going with this, but I have read his article. You may be misled by just reading the headline there, but once you read some of the following paragraphs, I think you'll get a better picture. Here's a good story, by the way. So not everything is bad in the news, and it's quite a heartwarming story, and it's good to know that there is still hope left in humanity. And this is a story where a mosque in Canada was vandalized. This is because, some racists in Canada think that you can go around attacking any Islamic Muslim place of worship, or any Muslim even, for the actions of other Muslims that maybe committed a crime, right? So they've gone and vandalized it. It says here, go home, go back to your country in red paint all over the mosque's front door and window. Okay, but the good story is that there are ordinary Canadians, black and white, Muslim, religious, non-Muslims, Christians, atheists, I believe, a mixture of people coming here and doing a fantastic job in cleaning up that masjid. So we're going to talk about that just briefly, but that's a really heartwarming story. Another story, we're going to play a little clip for you guys today, inshallah. Some good work done by a freelance journalist who we've had on our program, by the way, Brother Asad Baig, who's done some work previously for BBC. He's done another piece again for the BBC on how Muslims are living in fear in this current climate. So that's something that we're going to talk about, and how Canadian Muslims are also living in fear since the attack there they're living in fear because they are anticipating a lot of reprisal attacks against the Muslim community there by other Canadians. A prominent Muslim cleric urges imams to vet new Islamic converts. That's a very interesting story. I don't know what he is, which tree he's barking up with that one, but we can read a little bit more soon. Again, in 5 pillars, Brother Dilli Hussein, I believe, is doing another fantastic story here. It says, Met pays £425,000 to the victim of ex-undercover cop Bob Lambert. And you'll be interested to find out his current position and role as in the police force or the police service, and I'll leave that for when we go to that article later on. Time is of the essence, so I'm going to quickly cut through some of these headlines. We've got only 4 more to go. Internet chiefs are told to curb Islamists online. What a nice way to describe Muslims. Internet chiefs are told to curb Muslims online. I inserted the word Muslim. This is the story carried in the Telegraph. Mail Online. It says here, fight jihadis on Facebook and Twitter. Fight jihadists, says BBC's top Muslim presenter, Michelle Hussein. I want to know who this top Muslim presenter of the BBC really is. And I think you'll be quite amused to find out who that is. Al Jazeera, an excellent story again, written by Musa Al-Gharbi. It says here that the Mexican drug cartels are worse than ISIS. And look at the strapline. He's not holding back. This is Security Council material right here. He says Western obsession with the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant. Okay, ISIS. Western obsession with the ISIS is fueled more by bigotry than any genuine assessment of risk or atrocities. That's Al Jazeera. We'll come back to that very shortly. British Royal Marine questioned as he tried to board Turkey flight over fears he wanted to join the fight against you know who. Let's just say he was going to travel to go and commit acts of violence, basically, unsanctioned by any government, just like many Muslims may be doing so. Well, he's been stopped and questioned by the police. We'll take that story later. An axe-wielding US Navy veteran who attacked police officers was trying to end his own life and take revenge for all that racism. This is a story in The Independent. And we've got here finally a story that kind of exposes the double standards. This is a Ryanair passenger. He threatens to take down the aircraft that he was flying in. Okay, yes, notice he's not Muslim, so the word Islamic is not mentioned there. The word terrorism is not mentioned there. And, the airports are not all closed across the world. Threat levels have not gone up. Basically, one law for Muslims and another law for everybody else. Those are the headlines. We're going to go right now to a very brief break. And straight after the break, we'll be taking our calls from our VIP guest, Brother Anas at Tikriti. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Middle Path Radio. You've tuned into the Security Council. Assalamu alaikum to all our listeners, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, from wherever you are. We extend a warm welcome to everyone, inshallah. On the Security Council, you know that we are actually great believers of free thought, conversation, dialogue and debate. We find that to be the healthy way to deal and address a variety of different issues, differing points of view. And we are very much opposed to censorship. We like to allow everybody to have their say and to have that freedom of thought. Now, we don't want to get too delayed. I'll give out the number one more time. It's 07477 080 248. That's 07477 080 248. So do get in touch with us. Drop us a call. As soon as our guests have finished speaking, we'll be definitely opening the lines to take your calls, your comments, your questions, or your general thoughts really on the different issues that we'll be touching on today. We already have our guest online. So if you want to ask them anything, drop us a text or send us a WhatsApp message. We're trying to be as diverse as possible here to accommodate all the different platforms that you may be accustomed to. You can even tweet at us at Middle Path Radio. So we'll be looking at all of those accounts and taking your views and questions from there. Joining us tonight on the Security Council, we have Brother Anas at Tikriti, who is the founder and CEO of the Cordoba Foundation. And he's also a political analyst and media commentator who's been very frequent in appearing on many news pieces and interviews where he's given his analysis on different developing issues, specifically in the Middle East and also locally here in the UK. We've asked him to come on our show tonight to speak to us really about the recent crackdown, as it's being described in the media, the crackdown against the Muslim Brotherhood and their activities, let's put it that way, in the UK. Hopefully he'll be able to give us a clearer picture as to exactly what's going on and what the facts on the ground really are. Brother Anas at Tikriti, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. It's a pleasure being here.
Welcome to Middle Path Radio. We are definitely very grateful for you taking your time out and speaking to us on air tonight at this late hour. We don't want to keep you waiting on the line for that long, so we're going to get stuck in straight away. But before we do, we'd just like you to explain to us what the Cordoba Foundation is all about and what kind of work Cordoba Foundation really does.
Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First of all, assalamu alaikum to everyone. And regarding the Cordoba Foundation, it's now 10 years since the Cordoba Foundation was established. And the idea behind it was essentially at the time in 2005, and following the war in Iraq and the million marches in protest against government foreign policy and the wars in Afghanistan and the like. There was a question that was nagging, and that was that this seeming problem between the Western world and the Muslim world, was it something that was intrinsic, organic, such as suggested by the likes of Samuel Huntington, for instance, or by Francis Fukuyama in The End of History, that Islam intrinsically is hostile towards any other culture or any other civilization. I personally grew up not to believe so. In fact, if anything, I grew up believing and reading in history that actually Islam is one of the most receptive cultures and ideologies, as well as faiths and religions, to open dialogue, to the freedom of thought, to the freedom of expression and the such. So anyway, we wanted to understand what the problem was. Was it something manufactured? Or was it something that was intrinsic, and why? Was it political? Was it religious? Was it historic? Was it about social, economic ideas? What was it exactly? So that was what the Cordoba Foundation was set up to research. But then it evolved and developed into something far bigger and far greater, and it became a think tank, meaning that it provided not only research, but it provided also training, rehabilitation, development on various issues. It also provided advisory sessions to governments. So we're in relations with various governments around the world who need advice on strategic issues, either internally or regionally in their receptive or relative regions. And also we provide tailor-made research for people who need it, companies who are opening up shop in various conflict zones and the such. I myself became a hostage negotiator out of coincidence rather than a deliberate attempt.
Right.
And till now, I've helped to release more than 18 hostages.
Allah.
So it's the Cordoba Foundation does a lot of good, I would suggest. Of course, I would say that. I'm the founder and CEO. But our list and catalogue of work speaks for itself. The fact that various governments, including the British and the American governments, continuously come back to us and seeking our advice shows that we still have something valid, despite the fact that they might criticize us in public. But privately, they know deep down that what they get from the Cordoba Foundation is sound, is truthful, is accurate, and most importantly, it tells them what's happening on the ground, what the pulse of the street is, and that is something which is missing hugely in the overall analysis of Western governments regarding what's happening in the Arab and Muslim worlds by and large.
Jazakallah khair, Brother Anas. It may seem a little bit of a strange question, but a lot of our listeners, and in fact some of our panelists, including myself, we tend to be quite cynical and quite, critical about a lot of the things in the news, and also some Muslim so-called think tanks that do exist. So a common question that may be on the lips of many people having heard your introduction, they may ask, does the Cordoba Foundation actually take any money from the government when they're actually involved in advising different strategies or policies there? Is it invested by the government at all in any form or shape?
Not at all. The Cordoba Foundation, when it was first set up in 2005, at the time there was a program introduced in order to train young Muslims on media issues.
Sure.
And we bid to do that, and at the time it was called Pathways.
Sure.
This was prior to Prevent coming in, and we secured a grant from the Tower Hamlets Borough Council in order to run several workshops for young Muslims on media issues, and also to set up the Muslim debate, Muslim youth debate, or something like that. And since then, we fell out of favor with the council itself, as well as with we started to understand exactly what these funds were meant for, and therefore, since 2005, we haven't actually touched any of the money, because it unfortunately it wasn't for the reasons why it was set out to be. When this all started back in 2004, 2005, the aims that were declared were fairly favorable, were fairly positive. So it wasn't thought that it would descend into the kind of spiral pit that we have right now in the calamity which is Prevent, which is now not only bad but counterproductive.
Absolutely.
On every single level. All the advice, all the publications, all the hostage negotiations, everything that we are asked to do, we do for free. Independently. We have our own sponsors, we have our own funders, independent and private, who fund us, and therefore we can afford, alhamdulillah, not to take a penny from government. Not British, not European,
for the
not
transparency
American,
and your frankness in responding to that question. It's just something that sometimes maybe people feel uncomfortable to ask, but they go away with, these false ideas, perhaps just from hearing a short description. So we wanted to address that straight away before that. I think it's important. I think it's important. Thank you.
Barakallahu
feek for speaking so frankly. Now, I'm just going to quickly read 2 or 3 paragraphs from this Telegraph article, which will set us up for what we're going to discuss very shortly after. It's an article in the Telegraph by Robert Mendick and Robert Vercake. It says here, Downing Street is to order a crackdown on the Muslim Brotherhood and a network of Islamist groups accused of fueling extremism in Britain and across the Arab world. David Cameron launched an inquiry into the Brotherhood earlier this year, prompted by concerns it was stoking an Islamist ideology that had encouraged British jihadists to fight in Syria and Iraq. Sir Richard Dearlove, the former head of MI6, who is an advisor to the review, is reported to have described it as, at heart, a terrorist organization, end quote. The Brotherhood insists it is non-violent and seeks to impose Islamic rule only through democratic change. So those are some of the brief, insight into what the article is trying to suggest here, as is quite clear, and is citing some important people from some of the former head of MI6. So are any of these allegations true? What is the actual reality on the ground when it comes to Muslim Brotherhood and their activities in the UK? Brother Anas, can you shed some light on that for us?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think it's important to note that the Muslim Brotherhood don't exist as an organization in the UK.
Okay.
The Muslim Brotherhood only extends throughout the Arab world.
Right.
If you were to venture eastwards, for instance, to the subcontinent, to Bangladesh, to Pakistan, to India, you wouldn't find the Muslim Brotherhood. You'd find the Jamati Islami, for instance, or Dawat al-Islam, or the such. They carry the same ideology. If you venture further east towards Malaysia, again, you wouldn't find the Muslim Brotherhood. You'd find other local regional organizations that have their local sort of taste and flavor and shape and the such, and they and they practice whatever they practice within their context, but they carry the same sort of cultural reference or ideological reference. The same goes if you were to venture westwards and go to Europe. Again, there is no Muslim Brotherhood, but you would find various organizations that adopt the same ideology, and the same here in the UK. I mean, for instance, I would suggest that a number of organizations in the UK, and some, by the way, some might not even know it, carry very important strands within the ideology of the Muslim Brotherhood. And I would suggest, if you were to ask me, I would say that basically what we're talking about here essentially is the reform through non-violence, is through open dialogue, is through the exchange of ideas, is through the enrichment of cultures. We as Muslims learning from other communities, and other communities also being enriched by the presence of Muslims, by religion being part of everyday life, whether it be in education, whether it be in terms of economy and business, whether it be in trade, whether it be in politics. For us, Islam is as well as being many things, it's also a set of extremely unique, universally agreeable values.
That's right.
And those values enter into every sphere of life, and you cannot detach politics from your trade, and you cannot education and religion and faith also go hand in hand, and as such, it's something that we believe in, and whether we like it or not, whether we know it or not. Much of that lies in the very essentials and principles of what the Muslim Brotherhood have been preaching, for the past 87 years since they've come into existence. So, so the very first thing that we need to understand is that the Muslim Brotherhood don't actually exist as an organization. There are something like maybe a couple of dozen Muslim Brotherhood members, well known, either people who have left since the coup in Egypt last year, people who have been prosecuted over many years, and found London to be, a safe environment for them to reside in. Some of them have just arrived, some of them have been living here for 20, 30 years. But beyond those, maybe 20, 23 people, whom, by the way, the government knows and has been talking to for years now, there is no presence of the Muslim Brotherhood. So that's one thing to understand. The other thing is that when the government speaks about the Muslim Brotherhood within the UK, it's actually being a little bit disingenuous, actually quite disingenuous, because it's sort of engaged in a lot of ambiguity, and it leaves a lot of room for interpretation, for people to add and to fill in that kind of vacuum as they wish. Because the government hasn't really come out and acknowledged the fact that the Muslim Brotherhood don't exist, but then it goes and says, well, we're going to target 60 organizations, 60. And and I insist, and, I'm saying that there are around 20 to 23 people, by the way, most of whom are old age pensioners, incapable of running organizations. So the government now is saying, well, 60 organizations that represent the Muslim Brotherhood, and I'm wondering, who are these organizations? I mean, it's an incredible fallacy, and it's quite if it were true, by the way, and we did do some investigation after that article that you referred to, and we found that there are one or two issues that were inaccurate, to say the very least. So I don't know. But if we were to take what the article said at face value, imagine if any government said that we are going to target 60 organizations, not people, 60 organizations of a particular community, let's say the Jewish community or the Catholic community or the Irish community. That would be a declaration of war against that particular community.
Exactly.
So we are talking here about 60 organizations, along the spectrum of charity, education, community, mosques, think tanks, research centers, training centers, school, a whole spectrum, an entire community. So when they're talking about a crackdown against 60 organizations, essentially they're saying, well, you know what? We're going to crack down on the Muslim community in Britain. And I wonder who in their right mind in Whitehall in government actually thought that would be a sane, a good, a legal, a moral, or even a sort of workable idea or thing to say. It's just absolutely obscene, the fact that if the article was true, that any government source would say such a thing. As for Richard Dearlove, well, it's quite mesmerizingly comical in a sense, and I'm going to be quite sarcastic here because
by all means, this is the Security Council, so go ahead.
Yeah, you know, it's quite laughable how people who claim that they are engaged in a war against terrorism, against violence, and against extremism would go all out in targeting the non-violent elements within political Islam, within the Islamic spectrum. I mean, if there is one thing about the Muslim Brotherhood, I mean, you can criticize, of course. I mean, everyone who puts themselves up are open to criticism. You are, everyone is free to sort of exchange ideas, say that I don't like this part, I think you're wrong here and that. And I'm pretty sure that the Muslim Brotherhood, wherever they are, I'm pretty sure that they're mature enough to engage in any kind of debate along those lines. However, one thing that no one can deny is the fact that the Muslim Brotherhood have never in their entire history ever espoused or engaged in violence or terrorism. Not one single member of the Muslim Brotherhood has ever been on a plane hitting a building. Not ever have we ever heard of a Muslim Brotherhood blowing themselves up. Not ever have we heard of a Muslim Brotherhood member capturing or taking hostage foreign tourists or the such. Not ever. Not ever. The only incidents which the likes of Richard Diallo can actually mention are incidents which saw, in the 50s in Egypt, for instance, and then they mention Ayman al-Zawahiri. Okay, they say, well, there you go. Ayman al-Zawahiri came, he read the books of Sayyid Qutb and the such. Well, see where Ayman al-Zawahiri is now. The fact is that anyone within the Muslim Brotherhood who ever got tired of their non-violent preachings and wanted to espouse a violent way, they turned out to be totally isolated, and they left the mainstream. The mainstream always rejected anyone who wanted to adopt a violent notion. So the fact is,
if you allow me to just interrupt you just for a second there, I apologize for that. Some of our listeners might be thinking, so what exactly is the grievance? It is not a non-violent organization. It is a legitimate political outfit in Egypt, at least, and it's been successful in the elections there when it had a free, open and election. What is the threat that the UK government and other bodies around the world, what are they so paranoid and what are they so afraid of? What is their issue of contention?
Well, I'm left to speculate because I'd love, for you and your show to bring in one of, Richard Diallo or someone else who'd accept to come on and ask them that question and see exactly what it is they fear. Because everything that they claim that they fear is untrue. I mean, the fact that the Muslim Brotherhood espouses violence, that's untrue. That's factually untrue. In fact, if anything, and by the way, I had this discussion with Robert Mendick himself, the journalist who wrote this piece, because he called me, a couple of days before he wrote the piece, and we had a long discussion. And one of the things that I said to him, I mean, he said, there are claims that there are millions of Muslim Brotherhood members around the world. Is that true? I said, well, I don't know, and I haven't counted them, but I'll tell you this, or I'll ask you this. Would you rather that those millions were members of the Muslim Brotherhood, or would you rather they were members of Al-Qaeda or ISIS? Which would be best? Now, the fact is that by attacking the Muslim Brotherhood, you leave for young Muslims nowhere else to go but to Al-Qaeda and ISIS. If you really want to fight ISIS and Al-Qaeda, if you really want to fight violence and terrorism and extremism, as we're seeing on the screens coming from Syria and Iraq, the way to do it is not to fight the likes of the Muslim Brotherhood, who are a safe haven, an ideological, credible platform for youngsters to join and to thrive and to act politically, socially, economically, being their Muslims, fulfilling their Muslim identities, but without diverging and going into, the horrors of violence and bloodshed.
Sure.
Not, you would do that rather than target it. So the whole approach is quite laughable. And to be honest, this crackdown, I think it's very, very important that your listeners know where this came from.
Sure.
This started back in March when David Cameron announced that he was setting up a panel to review the Muslim Brotherhood and the activities of the Muslim Brotherhood in the UK. Now, at the time, because there were merely a handful of Muslim Brotherhood members here in the UK, and because to be honest, we hadn't really, nothing had happened anywhere in the world that involved the Muslim Brotherhood, apart from them being victims of, a horrific, brutal crackdown and a coup d'etat in Egypt against a democratic government. Apart from that, really, I mean, the question was, well, why is the Prime Minister doing this? I mean, it's not like there's any big story around the world about the Muslim Brotherhood's doing anything.
That's
so
right.
why is he calling for this? And it seems quite clear that the David Cameron's hand was forced by, trade interests, by the fact that we have a lot of trade interests with Saudi Arabia, with the United Arab Emirates, who don't like the Muslim Brotherhood because they they delegitimize their own undemocratic lack of void of freedom political regimes, and therefore those countries, through the billion strong contracts that we have with them, are twisting the arm of the British government and telling them, well, we want you to ban this group as well. We can't ban them in Abu Dhabi or Riyadh and then have them operate freely from London. So we want you to do this. So we have the spectre, we have the absolutely repugnant spectre of a British Prime Minister who should be entrusted with British interests and the interests of every single British citizen and British organization, regardless of interests, regardless of financial profit, actually accepting to acquiesce to the pressures of Gulf states such as the UAE and Saudi Arabia in order to target British citizens. It's an obscene spectre, but one that unfortunately we are in. Now, guess what? That review that was set up by David Cameron, head by Sir John Jenkins, who is the British ambassador to Riyadh, by the way, that review came back 4 months later, saying, well, basically, the Muslim Brotherhood have nothing to do with terrorism.
Wow.
And their leaders have not engaged in terrorism. But that report, which the Prime Minister promised would be announced in July before the summer holidays of Parliament, was shelved because it said that the Muslim Brotherhood had nothing to do with terrorism. It was shelved. And it was delayed time after time. We went after the government asking them for the report, and they refused to release it. And it's simply because they can't afford to release a report, independent, set up by the government, led by someone as esteemed as Sir John Jenkins, which says that, by the way, the Muslim Brotherhood aren't a terrorist organization, simply because imagine how many neocon think tanks, how many Zionist think tanks in America, as well as in Britain, would go out of business. Imagine the Quilliam Foundation, for instance, in London, going bust as a result of everything that it's been saying for years and years and years and getting millions of pounds of funding for, all being
it's clearly not in the
devalued.
interest of the government and all of these front organizations for bigotry and anti-Muslim hate for this kind of report to come out and say conclusively that actually the Muslim Brotherhood has got no link to terrorism or extremism. So really, I'm glad to hear that at least their name has been cleared in some sort of a official capacity. It's not getting the coverage that it deserves, especially after the way that they kicked up such a furore on in mainstream media about the false allegations made against the Muslim Brotherhood. I think really I had so many other questions and a lot more to talk to you. I know you're originally from Iraq, and your name obviously gives that away. We wanted to probably bring in a question regarding the current situation over there, but we really are out of time, Brother Anas, and perhaps we could have you on another show in the future, because we're always carrying the story of the crisis in Iraq and Syria. We'd definitely love to have your assessment on that in the future. Jazakallah khair again, Brother Anas. We are very grateful that you came and spoke to us on Middle Path Radio and the Security Council. We hope to speak to you again.
It was my pleasure. Thank you very, very much. And assalamu alaikum to all the
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. So that was Brother Anas at Tikriti from the Cordoba Foundation speaking to us about the whole situation with the Muslim Brotherhood and the recent crackdown by the government, and clearing up and dispelling a lot of the falsehoods being bandied about in the media, and a lot of the clearing the fog, as it were, we hope to connect this story really to another story that we're going to take after the break regarding the death of Professor Ghulam Azam, also a formerly a politician for Jamati Islami. I'm sure Professor Ghulam Azam's son, Dr. Salman Al-Azami, will correct me if I am wrongly quoting any of that information. Dr. Salman Al-Azami will be joining us straight after the break, inshallah. We'll be going there very briefly, and we'll be with you in roughly 2 minutes' time.
Middle Path Radio, your #1 online Islamic talk station.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the Security Council. You're listening to Middle Path Radio. And we just had one of our guest speakers finish up with us on the topic of the crackdown on the Muslim Brotherhood in the UK, and dispelling a lot of the doubts and the myths that are being bandied about in the media and the false allegations, really, to be quite frank. And he made no bones about that. He said some clear, flagrant inaccuracies in some of the articles, namely the one in the Telegraph. So we haven't got time to cover that story any further. And although on a different note, slightly related, talking about again the censorship and the clampdown on Islamic politics or political activity, Islamic political activity in Asia now, South Asia, namely Bangladesh. And we're going to be talking about Jamati Islami and what's happening with their operations in Bangladesh. Not because it's a new story at all or anything like that. This has been an ongoing issue in Bangladesh for several years, but it peaked mostly last year, I believe. And there's been a lot of protests, huge demonstrations, million-man marches taking place there. Protesters occupying certain public places. A lot of protesters, unarmed civilians being killed. Some reports of 1,000, 2,000 civilians killed in one night. But most recently, we heard that one of the politicians or one of the activists, a very elderly man, a professor, an academic, Professor Ghulam Azam, who was also arrested alongside many of his other colleagues, who are of a similar background, by the way, mostly elderly, some of them with medical conditions, as was Professor Ghulam Azam himself, suffering from some ailments. Unfortunately and tragically, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun, Professor Ghulam Azam has passed away in police custody. And we have with us today a senior lecturer from Liverpool University, joining us to speak about him. Not only is he a lecturer at the university, he's also authored a couple of works of his own, and I believe he's due to publish another book this year. We have with us Dr. Salman Al-Azami, who is also additionally the son of Professor Ghulam Azam. So hopefully he'll be able to explain to us the circumstances surrounding his father's death. Dr. Salman Al-Azami, assalamu alaikum and welcome to Middle Path Radio.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Thank you for having me. I'd just like to correct. I teach at Liverpool Hope University, not Liverpool University.
Oh, I apologize for that. That's Hope University. That's a correction there from Dr. Salman. Thank you for that. But Dr. Salman, I just wanted to know, tell us a little bit about your new book that you'll be publishing. Have you already published this year? I believe you may already have done so as we're coming up to the end of the year.
No, I'm writing the book at the moment. I'm actually looking the first time. This book's about how language, religion, and media can be related. I'm a linguist, and I'm looking at media representation of the three Abrahamic religions in the UK. Looking at the discourse, the language the media uses, the mainstream media uses in representing these religions.
So some people may mistake you because of the fact that you are the son of Professor Ghulam Azam, may misunderstand and think that you're a politician of some sort or you're actively involved in politics, but understand you're more an academic person and you do literary works.
I'm an outright academic. I'm not in politics in any way whatsoever, though I'm politically conscious as anyone would want to be. I do lecture a lot about multiculturalism, integration, assimilation, and multiculturalism, language. Right. And these issues are part of my teaching, but I am not active in politics. And though I'm a son of a politician, But I am an academic, and that's my job.
Jazakallah khair for taking your time tonight at this very late hour to speak to us. I know you have a huge following on Facebook. Many of them originate from Bangladesh as well. So this topic is really, your up your street, really. So regarding what's happening in Bangladesh, I'd like to go into that maybe after you explain, what happened with the tragic story that we've received here. And a lot of people have, and a huge number of people are mourning the loss of Professor Ghulam Azam, somebody who we had the fortune and the opportunity to benefit hugely from in many of his lectures that he's given. I've seen some of his works in writing as well. So he's influenced a huge number of people. He's been a very positive impact on large numbers of people outside of Bangladesh as well as inside Bangladesh. Tell us what exactly were the circumstances of his arrest and what has caused his expiring just last week.
To go back, he was arrested on 11th of January 2012. There's the Awami League government, which is currently running the country. They actually charged my father and his colleagues of being involved in war crimes, which is a ludicrous, allegation. If we go back to history, in 1971, when Bangladesh was, there was an independence war against Pakistan and wanted to secede from Pakistan.
That's right.
My father's party, which was a very small political party at the time, decided not to support the independence movement because they thought that the slavery that we had from West Pakistan, that means from Rawalpindi, would be transferred to New Delhi. And with the history of the Muslims in that part of the world says that Hindus have never been our friends and have never been very helpful in developing a nation. So he thought that this nation was created in the name of Islam, and instead of breaking it, we should work towards resolving the issues, and that was his sole motive. And he and his party members strongly opposed the independence movement politically. But what these people are trying to do is trying to put a military thing with it. There were a lot of Pakistani activities. The Pakistani army did a lot of activities, killed a lot of people, raped a lot of women. And they let everyone go. There were 195, war criminals, and they let everyone go through an agreement with India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh after independence. But after 40 years, within this time, when even immediately after independence, there was not a single case filed against my father or any of his colleagues. But after 40 years, suddenly they decided that these are the main perpetrators, and because the only reason is political, because the Jamaat is a political force, and its alliance with the Bangladesh Nationalist Party makes it difficult for Awami League to come to power.
Sure.
So they wanted to break the backbone of Jamati Islami, and for political vengeance, they decided to. Try this. So my father was arrested,
mm-hmm.
and he was kept in almost solitary confinement for almost 3 years. And he died. In 7th of November would be his 92nd birthday.
Wow.
You understand, an old man, who deserves to be with his family, with his wife, children, and grandchildren, was kept in a solitary hospital prison cell for almost 3 years, with the appalling condition in the room and the bathroom. He fell down 4 or 5 times in the bathroom at this age, and just half an hour every fortnight, my mother and my brother were able to see him. And and they tried to do all types of mental torture in terms of not allowing this, not allowing that, not allowing home food, and all types of things. So it's just sort of they wanted him to gradually go from
down,
that
basically.
first. So unfortunately, what we would say that, an old person would, we know that if no one is, everyone will have to go, will have to die. The only thing that we really feel very, very sad about is a man or, any individual has the right to have a dignified death, and he was deprived of it. Despite serving for the nation for the entire life, he sacrificed everything, whereas he never ever held any position, any power or any position. He just gave his life for the nation, but unfortunately, he was treated like that. But alhamdulillah, post his death, he got a befitting farewell from the people of Bangladesh. Around 1 million people attended his janazah.
Allahu Akbar.
And around the world, hundreds and thousands of janazah.
I was going to say.
Janazah took place. More than 100 in the USA, more than 80 in Turkey, and around the world. I got news from South Korea, Japan, South Africa. You name it, and in different parts of the world. I'm not. And led by prominent scholars like Yusuf al-Qaradawi also led one of the janazah.
Well, that's big, mashallah. May Allah accept him and have mercy on him, Dr. Salman. I know it's a very difficult issue for you to be talking about today, and it's just a damning indictment on the Bangladeshi government and their police service there, and the way they've treated such a senior citizen, and also somebody who's quite a high profile person in Bangladesh and outside of Bangladesh, as you've just quite clearly demonstrated. We really want to extend our sympathies and our condolences to you and your family. He's a huge loss for many, many people. I'm sure it's a time that your family may be grieving in, so we don't want to dwell too much on that aspect itself. So to bring back to the wider issue of what was happening in Bangladesh,
yep.
We know that the Awami League government in Bangladesh has been responsible for, I understand, a lot of human rights abuses. There's been massive controversy over the killing of thousands of protesters in Shapla Square only last year. I believe it was the 5th of May or 6th of May.
5th of May,
5th of May that they were protesting, and they had occupied Shapla Square without any weapons. It was well known. It was well televised as well. And it was a peaceful protest, much like what we were seeing in China here recently. And even the Chinese government haven't resorted to these tactics. Can you tell us exactly what happened, on that day?
I actually know as much as you know, because I've not been there, but I know I was following on the internet what was happening. I was following different television stations which was we could access through the internet.
Sure.
And I was following the news, and apparently what happened is, late at night when these people were there, these all innocent people, mostly people from the madrasa, who were actually fighting because, the bloggers, the ones that arranged that, the so-called movement in Shahbag, mm-hmm. They were, some of the leading figures of that movement actually wrote appalling comments about Allah and Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in their blogs, in their Facebook pages. And they actually came out to protest. In Bangladesh, if anyone says anything against Islam, the people won't let them leave. Recently, I don't know if you are aware, a government minister went to America and made some rude, bad comments about Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. The government had to dismiss him from the government, dismiss him from the party, and he is now in exile. He couldn't even come back to the country.
Right.
So anyone saying anything against Islam or the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Bangladeshi people will not tolerate. So
Bangladesh is one of the biggest Muslim populations in the world. I believe the third or fourth largest population in the entire world.
It is the third largest, yes, after probably Indonesia and Pakistan, as far as I know.
That's right.
So
So it's understandable. The outrage is understandable, but despite this, people will be cynical and saying, "Well, were they armed protesters? What were they doing? Were they burning embassies down and doing
absolutely
kidnapping
not. They were very innocent people, madrasa educated people coming, mostly, but general people also were there. They just went there for the love of the Prophet, and they just were protesting and demanding these people to be punished. And what happened is that the government, late at night, suddenly government turned off all the street lights, and from different corners they surrounded the people and started firing, without any provocation. And
live rounds. I've seen some of the footage from there. Even some of the human rights organizations, well known in the West, have covered this story.
And it's very difficult to really assess the exact casualty figure, but
sure.
Many people do say it's in thousands, but but the dead bodies, a lot of the dead bodies were not found. And there was an Al Jazeera report saying that there were some dead bodies were buried in different places, and some witness said that how many dead bodies were buried.
A huge number were reported missing as well.
Yes, absolutely. So. Unfortunately, that was a very tragic incident, and
this would be a good time to ask you: those protesters that came out, those people from the madrasa that you described, were they affiliated to a political party like Jamati Islami or anything similar like the Muslim Brotherhood that we were talking about earlier? Are these guys involved in Islamic politics at all in Bangladesh?
Not at all. They're mostly from the Qawmi madrasa. The organization that lead was called Jamati Islam. They are a non-political, madrasa movement, mainly from Qawmi madrasa, but there are other madrasa as well. And then later on, general people might have joined. But it was absolutely led and organized, and majority of the people who were there were from that background. So it was not at all political.
Jazakallah khair for clearing that up, because a lot of people might say, well, it was really the Awami League and their hatred for their opposition, which is Jamati Islami and, of course, the BNP, the Bangladesh National Party. So it would be a kind of tit-for-tat protest going on. In any case, that's not true. These were non-political members of public. In reports of about 1 million of them came out because of their, as you described, the love of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Muslims in Bangladesh take their Prophet very seriously, alhamdulillah, and they're very proud of their religion, and it's unheard of that inside Bangladesh, a population like that this kind of flagrant, repeated, unabashed, blaspheming, works are being published and hailed as works of freedom of speech and so on and so forth. So looking at the wider picture in Bangladesh, Dr. Salman, if you could just tell us, what is the plight of the political situation in Bangladesh? What kind of freedoms do the political parties in Bangladesh have, namely Jamati Islami? Since we spoke about Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt and here in the UK now. What's happening?
Bangladesh is basically a police state now, and particularly as far as Jamati Islami is concerned, it is a legitimate political party. It is not banned. But Jamati Islami's all offices, all district, all even a smaller offices of Jamati Islami are locked. No one can enter. So all the Jamaat offices are locked. Almost the entire leadership are in jail. And those who were able to escape jail are absconding. They are not, because this is a pity that even the acting Amir of Jamaat Islami couldn't attend the janazah of my father because he would be arrested. So that is the condition. And anyone who gets arrested, if you see recently, one of the Jamaat leaders, who's a former president of the student Islamic organization, Islami Chhatra Shibir, he was arrested as a normal, very healthy young man, and within a day, when he was brought to the court for remand,
yes,
he was just almost disabled condition.
Yeah.
Appalling condition. This happened to a previous, another former central president of the Islamic Chapter Shibir as well. So they torture and
abuse
all these people, and people don't have any sort of freedom. It's a one-party monopoly at the moment.
This is interesting. I'd like to insert here just an update for our listeners that this is not just happening to Bangladeshi political activists. So we understand a British Muslim had travelled to Bangladesh for his own purposes, and he managed to get caught up in the protests that were happening in the streets out there, and then he was beaten in the street and then arrested, and he was held in custody, and again he was being abused and mistreated. So this is a common practice, and it's not just happening to Bangladesh, it is happening to British citizens as well. Of course, this gentleman was a Bangladeshi in ethnic origin, but they have no respect for rule of law, it appears, and I believe Mayor Lutfur Rahman and Roshanara Ali MP had really worked hard to have this British citizen released from the cells in Bangladesh, and he's subsequently been released. Thank God, alhamdulillah, he's back in the UK, and we managed to secure an exclusive interview with him. So the kind of stories you're telling us, Dr. Salman, about the leaders of the student movements in Bangladesh are being exposed to this kind of treatment, it doesn't ring surprising to my ears. The question that begs everybody now is, has there been any international condemnation about the kind of human rights abuses that we're hearing of, and the level of let's say undemocratic censorship that is taking place over there, the criminalization of political activity in Bangladesh? Has there been a resounding condemnation coming from the international community, or are these the very same allies of the current Bangladesh government? What's happening in regards to that?
Yeah, I can't tell you that there is a resounding condemnation, but there are condemnations. I know what happens in these situations. You will understand, and what you can gather from your previous interview as well, is that these people, our government here in the UK, they would talk about human rights, they talk about all these
democracy,
really, the great words, democracy, freedom of expression, and all these. But when it goes against them, or in terms of their interest, they wouldn't really be interested. Why would they be interested? Why would they be interested in my father's party, or my father being used inhumanely, and other people in Bangladesh because they talk about Islam, they talk about rule of Allah, and for them that is enough to distance themselves from them. So they do say, for example, the so-called War Crimes Tribunal, they do say that officially they have always said that it's not internationally
recognized,
of international standard. It should improve. So they do give general statements like that the ICT should conform to international rules of law. But they don't do anything about it.
But there's no real intervention of any sort.
Absolutely no intervention.
Let me just add here as well that only a few months ago, Dr. Salman, sorry to interrupt you.
Do you know what's happening in Egypt? So how many thousands of people are killed? Who cares? These people are not human beings. Only if any other human being is dead, if any Westerners are killed,
exactly,
that is human rights abuse. But when thousands of people are killed in Egypt or in Bangladesh because they are so-called Islamists, they don't have the right to be condemned. What's happening in Palestine? So everywhere is the same situation.
Jazakallah khair for really exposing that double standard. And as this is an Islamic radio station, firstly for the Muslim community, but also for others outside of the community, we make no bones about what we say on the radio. Especially, we're very proud to tell our listeners that Professor Ghulam Azam was somebody who did speak up for divine rulings. He believed in Allah's supremacy, and he also he penned works called Iqamatuddin, the establishment of Allah's religion. He spoke about Islam versus the West. So he's written some very good books on the topic, and I understand when you say that these are probably the reasons why this doesn't fit the capitalist secular narrative, and that's the reason why when they are being abused in custody, when they're being mistreated, and their freedoms, political freedoms, are being taken away, heads of state across the world don't really care as much. And I should add here as well that this government has actually executed a former member of this political party, if I'm correct. Is that so, Dr. Salman?
Yes, absolutely. That is a very, very tragic story. Abdul Qadir Mullah was the Assistant Secretary General of Jamati Islami. I know him personally, and he's such a wonderful human being, for such a wonderful, very knowledgeable, young, individual. And what they did, it is a laughable thing, but it's not laughable that what happened to him, but it's laughable of the allegations against him. That there was a man called Butcher Qadir in a place called Mirpur in Dhaka city, right, who was responsible for killing a few hundred, people. And they actually said that this, because his name is Abdul Qadir Mullah, so he is that Butcher Qadir. That is, he's that individual. And they failed to prove in any way how it was possible. Because, immediately after the independence war, Abdul Qadir Mullah studied in Dhaka University, got a first-class degree from there, was teaching in a school inside Dhaka University campus, which is just around 20 kilometers away from that Mirpur area where that Butcher Qadir killed many people.
So this is all recorded, his place, his alibi, so to speak, and this is all recorded, is substantiable.
It is a fact. It is a fact that he was studying in Dhaka University. He was staying in a university hostel in Dhaka University after independence. He was teaching in a school which is inside the Dhaka University campus after independence, while the Sheikh Hasina's father was in power. And there was not a single case against him. And this Butcher Qadir, who was, you see, after the independence war, everyone's memory is fresh. And this guy who was doing all this massacre just 20 kilometers away from Dhaka University, supposedly is studying in Dhaka University without no one even noticing anything. And no one even mentioned that for 40 years. Suddenly, they say, oh, this is that Butcher Qadir, to kill him. And he was just murdered. This is nothing but a state murder. And so that is what it's under no doubt. That person. Even they tried to show a photograph of that Butcher Qadir behind the then Pakistani army leader General Niazi. And if you just see the photograph and him, there is no similarity. Absolutely.
Okay.
And same thing with Maulana Dilwar Hussain Saidi.
I feel terrible for just laughing at the sheer absurdity of the legal, in inverted commas, the legal process in Bangladesh and the way things are conducted over there. I feel quite ashamed that this is how our countries are behaving, and really I have got such low regard or no regard for human life, and executing people with the death penalty on these trumped up kind of allegations, schoolboy kind of allegations, really. Dr. Salman Al-Azami, again, we thank you for taking your time to speak to us on Middle Path Radio and the Security Council. Really wish we could have you on for longer, but time is against us, and so we do have to let you go. We hope, inshallah, in the future, Dr. Salman, that we can have your contribution, because we definitely value it very much. So we want to say again, last time, thank you very much. Jazakallahu khair. And if you've got any last comments, we'll say assalamu alaikum to you.
Jazakallah khair for having me and letting me speak, and I hope inshallah in future we will be talking again. So assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. So, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, and all our listeners, as our Bangla presenters and hosts would say, Priyo Sruto Mondolida Shommanito Hazirin. We just wanted to say, you just heard Dr. Salman Azami speak about the terrible plight in Bangladesh, but also with regards to the loss of his father, a famous personality, not just in Bangladesh but across the world. As you heard, different parts of the world, even some places that I did not expect. Korea, he mentioned. To know that Sheikh Qardawi is leading his funeral prayer in absentia, it just goes to show the kind of high-profile character that Professor Ghulam Azam really was. We don't want to dwell on those issues. There is so much more we can talk about. Both those issues, the Muslim Brotherhood, the censorship and the crackdown on their political freedom, them being called labelled, proscribed as a terrorist organization by the current Egyptian military coup that took place there, but also with regards to the censorship and the closing down of the operations of the Bangladeshi Jamati Islami. We can go on. Inshallah, we'll have to cover that in another week, bi'idhnillah. We need to hear from you guys, inshallah. The number is 07 477 080 248. That's 07 477 080 248. Do drop us a text or give us a call. We are yet to hear your views, inshallah, on these different issues. If we've made a mistake, or if somebody said something that you perhaps disagree with, then please, brothers and sisters, don't hesitate. Come and put us straight. That's what I say. This is the Security Council. Correction. This is Café Ikhwan, the reborn, reloaded. I've actually just got a text here. Do you want to read that interesting text from one of our recipients here?
I think you're doing a jolly good job.
I do apologize for monopolizing the whole show here. This is how dictators feel, I'm sure, after taking power and control. What does the text say?
He says, Salam, Security Council permanent members, especially good luck Django Jonathan. My apologies for not being able to join you today, but I'm listening in to ensure no counter-revolution takes place from Café Ikhwan.
Who is this? I wonder. He's still alive and well, I see. I need to sort out the CIA hit squad that we dispatched to have him assassinated. Was that Robert the Beast Mugabe or is that Desmond Two Guns?
It sounds like Two Guns to me.
Yeah, he is called Desmond Two Guns for a reason.
Continuation to the text. Where is Robert the Beast Mugabe today? Robert the Beast
Mugabe, of course, we didn't inform any of you. That would be giving the game away. He's also on, he's on our hit list. The Café Ikhwan Revolution has been working very hard behind the scenes to do a comeback on the Security Council to in our resurgent efforts to take over what was initially Café Ikhwan, and we believe we are on the right track right now. Some more texts coming in again, from some of our co-panelists saying that they say no to dictators allowed in the Security Council. And by the way, apparently Robert the Beast Mugabe is in quarantine because of Ebola, apparently, according to this text. I'm not sure how true that is. Some are saying that Ebola is a man-made, manufactured and engineered synthetic product used particularly to kill off certain members of the human population. So perhaps that is something that maybe our assassination teams have been developing.
I was just going to say, our Two Guns actually made a very, very valid point just a little while ago.
What did Desmond Two Guns say?
Where is Django of the Week?
Django of the Week. I haven't forgotten about Django of the Week. The thing was, now listen, Desmond Two Guns. See, when you're here, you can, put your foot in the door and say, look, let's talk about Django of the Week. Yeah. It's very true. I'll give it some airtime as well. The only thing, we had two guests lined up today. We normally only have one special guest on our show, and it was just we've got to call one of the council still alive and well, I see. Assalamu alaikum. Hello, assalamu alaikum. His level's up, brother Ubaid. I can't hear you very well. Is this are you in a hospital bed or in quarantine at all by any chance?
Can you hear me?
I hear you loud and clear. You sound quite well. What's going on? No, you don't sound so well. You've got a nasty cough, I understand. How are you doing? You okay?
Alhamdulillah. I see again. You when I'm not there, things go pear-shaped.
Desmond, listen here. Yeah, this is look. We've even got the producer in the studio with his feet up. That's right.
2 guns. It's gone to 4 guns.
Yeah, he's gone more like shooting blanks right now, mate. So, where exactly are you, Mr. Desmond Two Guns?
I am in quarantine, not from Ebola though.
You're in quarantine. Are you sure you checked yourself out for having Ebola or not? You don't know for sure. You see, you should definitely.
You never know. Yeah, that's right. That's right. All you have is a state of fear being created. You know, I think that's a very good image that I saw before about how every year you have a major headline of what you should be fearing. You know, so this year is fear Ebola. Before it was like swine flu. Before it was like mad cow disease. Before that is, Al Qaeda. Before that it's one after another. So it's just a scaremongering technique, just to keep the masses at bay and give up more of your powers.
Having said that, though, you would probably agree that some people, definitely, rather large swathes of people are dying from Ebola.
Of course, without that, he is a threat. But I think at the same time, it's been either overplayed in order for some other political gain, which we may not be aware of at the moment.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, it was definitely very nice to hear from you, Mr. Desmond Two Guns. I think we need to give...
Just one of my nominations for Django of the Week is going to have to be Robert the Beast Mugabe. So
Robert the Beast Mugabe, you want to throw him as a Django of the Week?
Yeah, that's right.
What's he done this week? He should be lying on a metal bed stretcher in the morgue if my plans went according to plan.
Yeah, assassination attempts.
That's right. We are picking you guys off one by one. So watch your back, Desmond. Good luck. Django Jonathan is on the rise to being the dictator on the Security Council, and I'm getting some good support from the producer here. Who's been my wingman on tonight's show.
I think the producer has been swayed with the majority. Unfortunately, he's just somebody who goes with the majority. If we're in the studio...
He's a very democratic person, as you can see. That's what the kind of wingman, a dictator like me needs. So on the topic of Django of the Week, I have some nominations. I haven't entirely forgotten. And they are the following people. Mr. Dearlove, we talked about him on our first story. He's the former head of MI6, making those fanciful claims that the Muslim Brotherhood is a terrorist organization at heart. So he's definitely one of the nominees for Django of the Week. We'll add your suggestion, Robert the Beast Mugabe, to be put down as Django of the Week, although that may be honoring him a little bit too much. So I've got some other suggestions. As we know, we're actually going to wrap up the show tonight. We've had a very long one today. The other suggestions I have is Mr. Danat. I forgot his first name, but I think they call him Lord something Danat. Now, you'll remember this name because we talked about him in the past. He's the former head of the UK military. And he's the one that, took the British Army to war in Afghanistan. And he is admitting, quite publicly that the UK military made wrong calculations on Afghanistan. And he actually corrects himself. He says, sorry, maybe I should have known such and such thing when he was saying we earlier. So, yeah, I mean, they are retreating and pulling back out of Afghanistan. It's a huge reason for celebration because this is the end of war. And that should be something that all human beings should be very happy for. So definitely Lord Danat, head of the army between 2006 and 2009, said here, I'll open a quote, "Looking back, we probably should have realized..." Then he says, maybe I should realize that the circumstances in Iraq were such that the assumption that we could get down to just 1,000 or 1,500 soldiers by summer 2006 was flawed. It was running at many thousands. So, I mean, what he was effectively describing here is that, they were stretched between Afghanistan and Iraq, and their men were under-equipped and unprepared for the whole situation that they were letting themselves into, and it was a huge disaster. Really, on a huge scale. So Lord Danat makes the Django of the Week list of nominees alongside Richard Dearlove, former MI6 head, and now you've added what's his name again? Robert the Beast Mugabe.
I'm quite disappointed that there's one person you haven't put there. You know, a very important person.
Who may this be? Not your friend Mufassili, is it? The so-called imam, preacher, lawyer, solicitor, journalist, imam, sheikh, everything. Man
That's
of many
exactly
talents.
the name I was expecting. You know, this guy has been on there for the last 2 weeks. I'm surprised he's not been there
So
again.
Mufassili is not on the list. Thank goodness for that. And I'm not a big Facebook guy, so I don't really know what kind of antics he's been up to.
Search him up again and just find any justification just to get him back on the nomination.
I think you're developing a unhealthy obsession with this very strange character.
I think
Desmond
No,
Tutu.
I'm trying to call him out as much as possible.
I'll tell you what
so
you should do. You should reach out to him on Facebook and invite him to the
show.
studio.
I think you should do.
What do you say, Mr. Producer?
I think Brother Habib needs
As long as you stick a soap in his mouth when he's in the studio, I'm more than happy to interview him.
The only
on
fear
this
that I
couch.
do have is if we did invite him on the show, would be exactly that, which is he may not be able to hold his tongue.
We may have to grab his neck and
what I can do,
ring it for him.
I can actually get one of those bleepers where every time he's attempting to say something, I just bleep it out.
No, I don't think. I think he'll be able to be a little bit more sensible when he comes onto the Security Council. He knows this is a den
Since he is the most
of
prominent,
dictators.
prominent commentators and social media activists of his ethnicity.
Self-proclaimed.
Please do not forget to mention the 1 million views.
The 1 million views that he has received is obviously indicative of how popular he is and how much people approve of his bad language, according to him. He clearly doesn't understand that views don't necessarily always equate to rating of approval. Sure, but no, I don't think he should make this week's Django of the Week list. Django of the Week, one more addition has to be thrown in there, and I am going to bring him up here because he's one dirty character.
Is it the same one who I'm thinking is that Canadian?
Not the Canadian guy, but you can definitely put him
I
forward as a nominee.
him.
Let me just talk about this guy right here. Look at this slimy character. Just look at him. I know this is radio, guys, but just imagine a slimy character in your head.
Even warning, is it? Graphic content.
This guy is worse. Let's put it that way. This guy is worse because his name Lambert. Now, God knows is his name. This dirty character, this vile individual, okay? He's an ex-undercover police officer. Now, when I say ex, doesn't mean he's left the police force. He's still there. He's actually moved up in the ranks, doing an even more well-paid job. Well, let's talk about what he was doing when he was in that position. The story in 5 Pillars, and I know actually the Guardian carried this story several times in the past, and when they exposed this terrible individual, it says here, the Metropolitan Police has agreed to pay £425,000, just nearly $500,000, okay, to a woman whose child was fathered by Bob Lambert, who she didn't know was an undercover police officer. Basically, let's explain that a little bit. This man pretended to marry this woman. He pretended to have feelings for her. He pretended to be a husband. He was an undercover police officer who was investigating this woman and the activities of the group that she belonged to. Can you imagine that? A woman being misled, an innocent person, okay? She's not a Muslim. She's a Caucasian woman. And not only did she get duped into marrying this guy, spending money, her life, and she even had a family with this man, Bob Lambert. This man went so, it's offensive to say, so deep undercover that he decided to have children with the people that he is investigating. I mean, you don't get more slimier and more dirtier than that. And that's the kind of dirty tactics that the police force in the UK are involved in. That's the kind of, scumbaggery and the depths that these guys can go to. Now, guess what? It doesn't end there. Lambert later went on to lead the Met's, wait for it, the police force's Muslim Contact Unit, which tackled radicalization in London. He also worked closely with prominent members of the Muslim community. I think that about says enough about why this guy should be Django of the Week, guys.
I think it's one Django of the Week. Yeah, that's enough said now. I think vote Civic
Sorry,
Council,
man, this guy just riles me up.
He's won it hands down. Just
You know, if that is not abusing women, if that is not oppressing women, if that is not, exploiting women, okay, then I don't know what is. And that is why the hypocrisy of white media in the UK and abroad is just, laughable and condemnable, because here he is doing precisely that, exploiting women, a woman who's been misled into having an entire family. That's such an important decision that a person makes, because they genuinely believe in their partner. And they actually hold strong feelings for that person. So much so, they are so committed to this person that they're willing to rear their children for them, bear their children for them. So this man, really, just a vile individual, is really being too complimentary to this scumbag. And yeah, that's why he definitely should be a nominee for Django of the Week.
Nominee is one. I think that's over, really. I don't think you can get a worse Django of the Week than this guy.
What a scumbag. Sorry. Anyway, Mr. Producer, you wanted to add somebody else on the list of Django of the Week. You said something about somebody in Canada. I'm not sure who you're referring to.
That Django, talking about, what was the article that you read out right at the beginning, the headlines?
Was it the one, you mean the Iranian one or the Canadian one?
The Canadian one, the one with the rosy, cheeky red tie he was wearing.
Oh, no, there is nobody there. I know the story that we had for Canada was to do with
the politician that
Parliament.
Yeah, he was saying how he was so shocked that Canadian soldiers were attacked.
Oh, you're talking about the where I think I may have actually closed that. This one. There we are. I haven't closed it at all. It's right here. Sorry, folks. I've got like about 25 tabs open here.
As always.
As always. I'm going to hang you up on you if you carry on like that, mate. So Desmond, Two Guns, you stay on. Anyway, the red.
I think I'll have to hang up on you.
Yeah, I think you do that. Stay with us just before we finish the Django of the Week, because that's a very good reminder. I appreciate that you've called in to speak to us despite being very unwell. So yeah, this is the one. You're talking about this guy. He is, let's get his actual name. Prime Minister Stephen Harper, who's the guy you're referring to. I mean, they're referring to this as some sort of a terrorist outrage when, we know what happened in Canada. But I mean, this is in the article written by Glenn Greenwald, and he says that it's quite... He's taken issue with the fact that Canada, who's been at war for 13 years, should be shocked that, in inverted commas, he says, a terrorist attacked its soldiers, while these soldiers are actually at war against those very same guys for the last 13 years. It's possible that they might actually shoot back. Or is that not what happens in war?
Well, this is why he's a very prominent person to be named as Django of the Week, because
he's definitely very eligible.
What do you expect? I mean,
this is the very definition of what Django means. The sheer stupidity.
The way I look at it,
of it. Let's not talk about the whole
this is like Britain,
act of terrorism or whatnot.
Yeah, now this just reminds me, that they're just walking the steps, same steps as Britain did when they went to war.
That's right.
They're walking the footsteps, and it's just a matter of time before it just goes all haywire for them at the moment, because they're going to be taking part in wars. There's going to be discord.
Well, they were involved, if I understand, in those same wars that were waged on false premises, completely made up, bases, like the weapons of mass destruction. And so the wars that they've participated in have been disasters, on many folds. But it isn't, why should it be a shock that there will be some people resorting to violence in response to these wars, these violent wars, by the way. These wars.
His shock has actually shocked me. So
that's why he should be definitely one of the Djangos of the Week. Now, before you go, Mr. Khabbab Desmond Two Guns, listen to one of this Django. This is a nomination that I'm going to throw in. Okay, and I always have all the alhamdulillah, Allah inspired me, alhamdulillah, to to think of this one. Okay, last week.
You too much. Good luck.
Good luck, Django Jonathan is nominating your favorite celebrity and hero.
Who's that?
I've forgotten his name.
Tom Cruise?
Well, he's an Arab version of that character, and he runs his own YouTube channel with a Bengali character.
Oh, what's his name?
I forgot his name.
Adam Saleh.
Adam Saleh. Thank you.
Oh,
Now this brother. This brother has to be Django of the week. I'm sorry. And I know he's got a lot of fans. If you guys are listening, call in and tell us, why he shouldn't be Django of the week. He deserves to be Django of the week. Sure, he ain't like
What
Bob
did he do
Lambert.
this time round?
That scumbag is
What did he do this
another
time
league.
round?
Okay, right. Last week we talked about Islamophobia, and it's really strange. We had somebody who actually is involved with dealing with many real serious cases of Islamophobia. We had Brother Azad Ali from Mend come speak to us about Islamophobia, and really I feel embarrassed that I believe even Brother Azad Ali made reference to a video that was produced. Notice I use the word produced by Adam Saleh. Directed, choreographed,
Acted.
But the video depicted Islamophobia at work, or in real life, and it showed two Muslim individuals dressed in jeans and t-shirt in the street, acting very aggressively and even quite physically in front of a police officer whose face was blurred out
With one another.
but within amongst themselves, the two Muslims. This is Adam Saleh and his I forgot the Bengali brother's name. I think he gets
Something
that quite
Sheikh.
a lot. Yeah, something Sheikh. So he's and the police officer apparently just watches them and lets them kind of carry on getting very aggressive with one another, and doesn't even bat an eyelid. Moments later, they return in a thobe and some Islamic attire and garments, maybe a turban and a long Islamic thobe. And they're not having as serious and heated argument, but they are, having an argument in front of the police officer, and automatically the police officer reacts and says, "Yo, what are you guys doing? Get up against the wall," and he kicks the legs separately and puts them up against the wall and what's the word I'm looking for? Roughs them up basically, and gives them a touchdown to see if they're carrying any concealed weapons. And this created a huge outcry, really. First of all, on YouTube, we got a massive number of hits, and it really highlighted the real problem of Islamophobia and institutionalized racism that is kind of evident in many police forces across the globe.
Is that a good thing or a bad?
Now, that's why last week he wasn't Django of the Week. We were carrying it as a story to demonstrate how Islamophobia is real and serious. And that video was quite evidential of that. But only a few days later, he...
Don't tell me.
...revealed...
He started crying again.
No, he didn't reveal, actually. It was the New York Police Department which tweeted that they can't believe that a certain video was made, which is completely false and choreographed. And afterwards, he replied to that tweet saying he acknowledged that it was choreographed, but he was trying to say that, I was trying to highlight a real issue.
So hold on, the police officer was one of these guys?
He was an actor. The police officer on the video was an actor. The guy who was being Islamophobic, basically, wasn't really a police officer. That's a question to you, Desmond Two Guns.
Yes, no. The police was an actor. Everything was acted. And when the New York Police Department was getting completely, lambasted, saying, how can the police be doing this? They eventually said themselves, hang on a minute, this wasn't even real. This was completely faked. And then when Adam Saleh replied to that tweet, he then acknowledged that, yes, it was a fake. But he was trying to highlight a real problem that exists. But in this supposed way of highlighting it, which everybody took as real, serious...
Why didn't his video say that and make that clear when they produced this video? Because you know what, the damage that this has done, I understand that would have been that would have worked if he had said, this is the whole thing is choreographed. This is the kind of treatment that we get, but this is not these are not real events.
I don't think even him saying that would have made any much of a difference, because the actual video was shot in such a way where it was kind of one of those kind of
made to look like one of those
secretive kind of filming going on. So
undercover footage.
Why would he do that? I mean, I'm baffled now. I mean, why?
I think he got caught out that it wasn't a real video. He was probably trying to make it appear as though it was a real incident. And when
he basically went along with it, when everybody thought, oh, poor Adam, he's gonna get he's been bullied by the police. I don't know.
His popularity had shot up because I don't approve of all the videos that he does, right? But on this case, I was taking my hats off to him, saying, mashallah, he's exposed the kind of, treatment that Muslims are facing on a regular basis, and people are not talking about this, and he's managed to highlight that for the Muslims. Now, knowing that he's been exposed to have just, the whole thing was choreographed, it was artificial. I just find it, it discredits the genuine cases of Islamophobia.
His millions of fans that he has. I mean, what are they saying about it? Are they all right with it? I mean, the fact that he just
I don't really follow the comments, to be honest with you. Most of them are made up of little children.
But anyway, do you know what? I have no sympathy for. Do you know what? I think that he tops the Django of the list today.
You think he tops
the main reason because I have no sympathy for him because he's only going to go and make another crybaby film, and he's going to get his ratings back up again.
Check
and
the producer out tonight. He is on a roll. Mr. Producer, are you okay? Do you had too much fizzy drink tonight or something?
I think he had too much of a good luck Django Jonathan.
He's feeling kind of ruthless tonight.
I'm floating on the Café Ikhwan, the mint tea vibe.
The mint tea is back, and we are enjoying the Café Ikhwan Bakhur
there is
smoke
no Café Ikhwan as long as
in the hall right now, in the tavern, as it were, and the halal ginger beer stuff. So, Desmond, it was good to have you on the show, and we're going to talk a little bit about Adam Saleh. I just wanted to summarize on that. The reason why I think that he should be nominated for Django of the Week is because that kind of boy cries wolf video discredits the real genuine cases of Islamophobia out there.
It's not even about the Islamophobia. I mean, with everything what's going on in Ferguson at the moment, and the heated tension with the police and the people over
the treatment of black people being shot down,
it just gives unnecessary credit to the police. But
it's not true. It's just fake.
If this group of people can do something like this to us here, imagine all the other allegations that are coming against us.
They're not true.
It just messed everything up. I mean, why do that?
It really damages the cause of ethnic minorities and religious groups that are suffering from Islamophobia and racism, not just in America but everywhere in the world. So again, Desmond, Jazakallah khair, Mr. Two Guns. It's good to know you're still around. I need to speak to one of our contractors.
Even if I'm dying, I'm still
but watch your back. That's what I'm going to say. Watch your back, buddy. Either Ebola or the E-bullet. One of the two may be coming for you. Okay, you get a good night's sleep, inshallah.
More guns will be back,
and we'll have to see next week if that is the case, or whether it will be a resurgent Café Ikhwan, or shall we just call ourselves the Caliphate Ikhwan or something like that? I don't know. It's becoming very popular these days. Nice to hear from you. Inshallah, have a good night, brother Desmond Khabbab Two Guns. I'll speak to you maybe next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Alaikum salam.
I think we're just going to wrap up the show right here. I'm going to do something interesting. Desmond Two Guns would have loved it because he's always complaining that I do kind of go on. It's only 10 to 12, so it's actually time to wrap up anyway. Django of the Week. Let us seal that. Desmond, if you're still listening on your piece over there, put out the tweet of the guys who we think are nominees. Who would be the Django of the Week? I heard what Desmond had to say. He's still rooting for Mufassili, but he ain't a nomination. We should have asked him. Who does he think should be? If you're listening, drop us a text and let us know who you think Django of the Week should be, Desmond, since you're still alive and well.
If Khabbab had his own way, he would have
Mufassili
every single week.
Show.
He would be that standard.
I'm telling you, that's our unhealthy obsession with Mufassili. It almost gives credence to the fact that he's some sort of a prominent celebrity of sorts. No more Mufassili. Okay.
I think the Prime Minister of Canada, I think he needs to go. I mean,
you think Stephen Harper, is that his name?
Yeah, I think.
Nobody even knows this guy.
I think let's leave.
But he's fighting wars in many countries.
I'm sure we will hear from him a lot more
in the near future.
So let's save that slot for him.
Okay, Stephen Harper. You think he should be Stephen Harper? I think Bob Lambert. That guy. My goodness, the Muslim community should be aware of this criminal. Those are my words. He hasn't been convicted yet, although one of his victims has been given money to compensate for her terrible experience with Bob Lambert.
My only thing
Isn't that a form of acknowledging some guilt, to take conceding to some sort of taking responsibility for a crime?
My only thing with that is he will be in the news again for the very same reasons.
He's head of Muslim Contact. It's like a Muslim community relations team. Now, you might be thinking, well, what does that mean? I mean, big deal, right? No, it is a big deal because this guy was doing the same thing in investigating other groups before Islamic terrorism became a serious issue for them. He was investigating those anarchist groups or those kind of animal rights campaigning groups and stuff like that. That's why he married into those campaigners' families and to get close to them, and that's how close he got. And it looks like he's been only promoted, hailed, and rewarded for his conduct.
I think we need to hear more. I think we need to hear more of him.
Maybe we can speak to Dilly again in the future,
and then put him up on another lineup.
Definitely.
If that's the case, and then
because we didn't talk too much about it.
I've just got a text saying it's a go to be Adam Saleh.
It's got to be Adam Saleh.
Is the number one Django because his move was a Django move,
a Django maneuver.
It was
you're close, whoever you are.
It was a Django duck and dive.
It was a Django maneuver through and through, 100%.
360 turn Django move.
One of those Django maneuvers that you all, everybody does a simultaneous face palm.
Do you know what?
When you see one of those Django maneuvers.
I'm just waiting right now for his crybaby video now.
He's probably got one. I'm not bothered following that up. I really thought he redeemed himself with this video by doing something good as opposed to the kind of stuff that he was doing before. But this actually tops it. This makes it worse than the kind of videos that he'd done in the past. And I'm feeling Adam Saleh on this one.
I'm feeling Adam Saleh as well. And
Adam Saleh
is also feeling Khabab. He's also actually put another spanner in the work. He actually is just texting saying, while Bob Lambert, that's another award for the sickest Django of the year. Oof. So maybe we should do an annual sickest Django of the year.
Sickest Django.
So we now have our first official candidate
for the Django of the year. Sickest Django.
Sickest Django of the year.
Fantastic.
And that will be revealed at the end of Ramadan.
I'm surprised Desmond Two Guns did not suggest Mufassili as sickest Django of the year. But
hold on, I'm just waiting for the text right now.
That means there's hope.
Turn
it off. So okay, that's a good idea. Okay, so that kind of puts me, at ease, thinking that Bob Lambert did not get away by the skin of his teeth today. He is still in the pipeline.
Dodged the bullet.
Today lives. What is it?
Lives another day.
Live just another day, right? But not the whole year, I hope. Inshallah. Okay, so Django of the week, I think, unanimously this time round. Unlike in previous weeks, this week unanimously goes to Adam Saleh. So, brother Adam, if you're listening, my brother, man, we give you an opportunity.
Will be live on Instagram by tonight.
Twitter.
You may collect your
blog. Everywhere.
G Plus, everywhere. You may collect your Django of the week frame on our
on
middlepathradio.com.
It's all there, right there, waiting for you.
Oh, here we go. We got it. Mufassil is also another nominee. That man can't even.
Desmond Two Guns, it's too late, mate. Your text came. What did he say?
That man can't even spell his own swear words.
That's true. That man cannot spell his own swear words. So I'm going to say, look, Django of the week is Adam Saleh. And if you're listening, my brother, or if any of your fans out there, I know there's loads of fanboys and girls for Adam Saleh out there. Come on. You're so vocal on the YouTube comments, hiding behind the internet connection. We won't do anything to you.
We do have an appeal process.
This is the Security Council, but it's...
So you are entitled to an appeal process. We're not sure
which
how many...
eventually comes back to us anyway, as all appeals processes
he's going to be trialed and juried and sentenced by us anyway, so...
but you do have that opportunity. It's there at least, we're giving you an opportunity to appeal it. So give us a call, drop us a text, and talk to us and say, look, you guys have got it all wrong. Adam's doing some good work. Did we give it to Humza Arshad last week? Humza.
That was one of the weeks.
The Diary of the W Man.
It was one of the weeks. No, sorry, he was a contender actually.
He was a contender, but I don't think he got it. Did he get it? No, he didn't get it. Who got it last week? I think
that week was a very ruthless battle between Mufassil and him. That was the first introduction to uncle or brother Mufassil.
He's another waste man. Diary of the Two Waste Men. We'll talk about that inshallah another time. I want to thank all our listeners, brothers and sisters, especially our special guests who were on the show. Those of you who may be a little bit surprised, but this is the very style in which we conduct our programs on the Security Council anyway, where we try to keep it informal, we try to keep it down to earth. We give everybody an opportunity to say what they want. We cut through the political spin, the propaganda. We tear down all the political correctness and all the FUD, fear, uncertainty and doubt. We just speak it how it is. That's what we try to do, because there's not much of that happening out there, especially in the Muslim community. In this climate of fear, Muslims are afraid to speak their mind and to pour out their heart. We do that here ourselves, and we encourage everybody to do that as well on our show. And beyond. So without any further delay, inshallah, we're going to bring our show to a close tonight. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
In a world overrun by neocon warmongers, and with the mass media in the pockets of the cabal elite, there remains one bastion of truth amidst the confusion. One beacon of light shining through the murky fog of spin and Islamophobic propaganda. That's right. It's the MP Radio Security Council, the final frontier in the fight for freedom and fairness. I give you the Security Council.
أبدا لن نحيد أبدا لن نحيد أبدا لن نحيد عن خطى الإيمان دربنا درب قويم دربنا درب قويم بالهدى القرآني أبدا لن نحيد أبدا لن نحيد أبدا لن نحيد عن خطى الإيمان دربنا درب قويم دربنا درب قويم بالهدى القرآني سائر في طريق الحق يا جند الله